the introduction of Power BI, and they have also taught you guys on how you can model your data, different ways of modeling data, and different type of data modeling in Power BI, which I believe Joseph will have done justice to that. So today we are going to be moving to another topic in Power BI, which is, I think, that is one of the most, the topic that a lot of people always find it difficult to understand, but it's very, very simple, seriously. If you understand the concept, if you understand the principle behind behind the topic, you should find it more easy. I think it's more when people say DAX is very hard, I tell them that it's not that hard. Maybe for beginners it might look so confusing from the beginning, but as time goes on, once you understand it very well, you shouldn't have a problem. So we'll be looking at DAX, which is also known as data analysis expression. That will be our topics for today. So, but before we go on to that, let's start from where we stopped last week. I'm going to share my screen now, then ask you some few questions to let you know, to know whether you understand what you guys actually did last week. Is that fine? John, Winnie, Emmanuel, and who is the last person that his mic is on? Can't see the last person again. Last person has run away. Anyway, so I'm going to share my screen now. Confirm if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Right. Please confirm you can see my screen again.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so I'm going to show you something and I need an answer to that. So I have this table visual that I want to do some visualization with it. And the first thing that I want to do is that I have a table called products. So I want to pick the product name. So I want to see the products by the quantity sold, and the quantity is inside the transaction table. So I want to pick the quantity, right? When I pick the quantity and I observe something happen, what I want is that I want this table to actually show me the value for each of these product names. But what is showing me here is showing me the total quantity for all the products. So what I want is actually a breakdown of each of these quantity. So can anybody tell me what the challenge is? What is the problem here? I need someone that can explain to me what exactly is the challenge. And this is actually from the topic that you guys did last week. So let's start from there before we move on to what we want to do today. So what is the challenge here? Anyone? Or what's the problem here? Anybody? No relationship from the data model. Wow, interesting. That's good. That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. No relationship from the data model. Any other person? Is there any other reason why? What exactly is the issue? If you have any other concerns or any other opinion, why the data model or why the this values is like this? Any other person? Any other one? I need an answer from us. Any other opinion apart from what Ifeanyi have brought? So if you support what Ifeanyi said is correct, just type yes. And if you say if it's not correct, say no. Are we following at all? Should have made a measure. Okay. So Ifeanyi said there is no relationship from the data model. Is that correct? Is it yes or no? Or you have any other opinion to add to what is happening with this data? Okay, Abiola said yes. Okay. Any other person? Yes, okay. Any other person? Is it that our network is slow or what is the problem? What is the challenge? Okay, so let's move on. Yeah, if you are actually right. There's no data model, there's no relationship between the product table and the quantity and the transaction table. So that is the problem with this data. So what you need to do, because I've seen it a quite number of times, a lot of people always have problem with model, right? They have problem with models. They will come out and tell me, they're having this issue and they don't know what is the problem. But this thing is just a model problem. So what you need to do is that go to your data model and, click, you can create a relationship between your product table and your transaction table. So click on new relationship. I believe Joseph have taught you guys this last week. So I'm not going to, this is not my topic for today. I just want to, start from where Joseph stopped last week. So you create a relationship between the product tables and the transaction table, and that will give you your models. So when you go back to your report, you will have seen that you will start seeing the quantity by each of the products. So you will now see that the total is just one total. It's not across all the products named again. So yeah, I believe that's where Joseph stopped last week. If you have any concerns or maybe something is not clear, you can go back to what Joseph we can go back to what Joseph have taught you guys last week, and I believe you will understand what a data model is all about very well. Okay, so let's move on to what exactly we are here for today. So today we will be looking at data analysis expression, which is DAX. I believe we all know that DAX is the calculation part of Power BI. So when you talk about calculation, when you want to do calculation, so the language that we use to, or the language that they call it is what is DAX, that is the data analysis expression. If you are doing calculation in Power Query, they also call a particular language here. Does anybody know the language in Power Query? Anybody? What's the language used in Power Query? Anyone? What's the language used in Power Query? Anybody? What's the language used in Power Query? Anyway, I'm not going to answer you if this is not this is not a model, this is not a data modeling class. Should have this is another class. So I believe Joseph will have explained these questions to you last week, but maybe after the class you can drop it on the Discord channel and I will answer you. But let's just focus on to this part. Yeah. So I have a question now. What is the language used in Power Query? Who knows the language? What's the language? What is it? What is it?
M language.
M language. Yeah, thank you very much, Winnie. Yeah, so the language used in Power Query is called M language. While the language used in Power BI to create your dashboard, to create your measures, is called DAX, which is the data analysis expression. Now, DAX is what we mostly use to create calculations, right? We use it to calculate calculations. And when we talk about DAX, it is also known as what data analysis expression is a formula language used in Power BI, Excel, Microsoft tools to define custom calculation. It enables you to create new information from your data model. So when you talk about DAX, that is not only in Power BI. We can use that in Excel. It's because assuming that we did Power Pivot, is it Power Pivot? Yeah, Power Pivot in Excel. You guys will have taught you DAX in Excel as well. But because of time and because we know that we are still going to do DAX in Power BI, that's why we did not touch it in Excel. But the knowledge of DAX here is also the same knowledge in Power in Power Pivot in Excel. And it's not only in Power Pivot in Excel. If you go to some other Microsoft products like SSAS, Analysis Service, you can also use DAX inside Analysis Service. If you go to Microsoft Fabric on the cloud, you can also use DAX as well there. And some other Microsoft products that, that involve, creating calculations and all. So DAX is not just only in Power BI. So don't think that, oh, you can only use DAX in Power BI. No. Now, to create DAX, in creating DAX, there are some principles to it, right? So one of the things in creating DAX is that you first need to understand how DAX work. And we have different type of DAX. You understand? We have different type of DAX, or let me say we have different type of calculation in Power BI using DAX. We have the calculated table, we have the measures, we have the calculated column, and we have tables, columns, and measures. You understand? So we have different, like 3 types of DAX calculation. You understand? We have different type of what? DAX calculation. Whenever you want to write a DAX measure, and like I said, we have measure. The first thing you need to consider is the name of the measure you want to create. Whether you want to create a table, whether you want to create a column, whether you want to create a measure, the first thing you need to first define is what you want to create. And this is what you can see here now that I have total quantity. So this is showing you the name of the measure or the name of the calculation that I want to create. Then followed by what? Followed by your function, because most of the time we use function to create in DAX. Most of the time we use functions. It is only when you are creating calculated column. Sometimes you might not use function in creating calculated column. It is not all the time you use function to create calculated column. But in most scenarios, we use functions to create it. For example, now what is the function here? Who can tell me what is the function in this place? Which function are we using here? Which function are we using here? Anyone? Which function are we using here? Which function are we using here? Those that their mic is on. Which function are we using here? I don't like these people that we gave mic. All of them are not active at all. We need to change you people. You guys are not active. We need active people that can talk. Please, if you know you will be able to talk, can you raise your hand? Let's have each other unmute your mic. I need people that can make the class more interactive, not people that will be silent. So I'm asking a question that in this place now, who can tell us the function being used here? Who can tell us the function that is being used here? Anyone? Some. Okay. Please, all these people that are talking on the chat, can you guys, raise your hand and let Busola, give you mic so that I won't have the time. It's very stressful for me coming here to come and be checking chat and all. So please just make my work easier. So yes, the function here is sum. And you can see that when you are using a sum function, it's asking you, it's going to tell you what exactly is required. The first thing that is required is what is the table name, followed by what? The column name. And that is how DAX is being written, especially when you are using it with a function. The first thing is what? Define your variable name, whatever you want to create, then followed by what? The function. The function is what? Whenever you see a function, it's going to tell you what exactly you need. The first thing for this one is what? Is the table name, followed by what? Column name. You understand? And how do you know a column name? A column name is always in what? In square brackets. You can see a table name is always in what? In a parenthesis, like a bracket. You can see that is the table name. But when you are looking for a column name, it's always what? In a square bracket combined with the table name. You understand? So that is how you know how that's how the DAX syntax actually works. And whenever you are writing it, that it's different from Excel. That in Excel you can reference a particular cell in Excel. Here you don't reference any cell. What we reference is what is the table name and the column name. That is what we usually reference it. So that is about DAX. And I said that we have how many types of DAX? We have majorly 3 types. the calculated column, the measures, and what? Calculated tables. Those are the major 3 types of DAX that we have. So as time goes on, you guys will understand these 3 DAX method very well. So now, apart from the functions that we have in DAX, functions are what? Who can tell us what is different between functions and formulas? Who can tell me what is different between functions and formulas? Anybody? Who can tell me what is different between functions and formulas? Functions and formulas.
Functions are
Okay.
Can I
Go
talk?
on. Yeah, go on, please.
Yeah, functions are like they are embedded. They're already in they come with the system, so to say. They're understandable. They are being understood by Excel or whatever platform you're using. But like formulas, you can on your own put formulas together using operators and to achieve results. But unlike the other ones, they're already there. They serve specific purpose.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emmanuel. I believe that's Emmanuel speaking. Yeah, thank you very much. Just like you mentioned something that is very, very key in your explanation. You mentioned something like operator. So especially that's the reason why I'm even asking what is the difference between functions and formula. So if you understand, functions are, an inbuilt formulas within a particular, application. For example, now when we say sum is a function and is an inbuilt. What that function is doing is what? Is to add something, is to do summation of a particular figures together. But when you are saying formula is like you yourself, you are the one writing that formulas, right? You are the one creating it. It is you customizing what you want. You don't want the system to decide for you. You are the one deciding for the system. And when you are writing formulas, you can use some basic, DAX operators like, plus, minus, asterisk, raised to power, different operators to ensure that, you can write your formulas yourself. You can even use a comparison operator like greater than, less than, equals to, not equals to. You can use text join concatenate function like ampersand, double pipeline, different, operators within the, whenever you are writing your DAX, and you can customize it. So you are not only restricted to functions alone. You can make things are more flexible. They are not rigid, they are not static, in DAX. You can make things, even DAX make things even more flexible. And that is why a lot of people like it. When you are doing something, you can easily customize your work with DAX. So that is one of the most interesting thing about DAX. It makes work more flexible. So thank you very much, Emmanuel, for that. So let's move on. Now, like I told you, we have different type of DAX function. We have the different functions. See, when you start working in a real organization, it is most likely that you might not even use up to 20% of the functions that we have. We have close to 500 functions. You don't need to know everything. I won't lie to you. Maybe the function that I know myself, they are not even up to 20%, because where I work or on a day-to-day activities, the function that we actually use, they are not even up to all the functions that we have. Yes, there might be a scenario where you might need to use a particular function. You might need to understand how the functions work. You can use AI. Oh, I don't know this function. Can you explain how this function is working for me? And AI will break it down for you. Or you want to know how a particular function is being used. You can go to YouTube, type, oh, how can I use it? Someone will have done it before. There's nothing new under the sun. We all know that. And all these functions, someone have done, it is created by a human being. So definitely someone have used them before. So you don't have to cram any functions on your head. But one thing is just that know the basic one. And what are the basic functions? So we have the logic function, which is mostly common. From your Excel time, when you are doing your Excel, you know the if statement, you know the AND statement, you know the OR statement. The only function that is new here is the switch function, which is a function that works in Power BI DAX. I don't know whether it works in Excel at the moment. You understand? Now, the mathematics function, everybody is familiar with it. You have done the Excel class, so nobody on this call will say that they are not familiar with mathematics function or statistics function like sum, max, minimum, average, divide, count, distance count. We are all familiar with that. Even in your SQL as well, you do something like this in your SQL, right? Text function, you're also familiar with it. Concatenate, left, right, mid, upper, lower, you're all familiar with it. All these are the normal, function. Iterator function like SumX, average X. Well, you might not really be familiar with it in Excel, but it's also something in Excel. They call it, different functions in Excel. Like maybe I think they use product, you understand, in Excel. Then we have related function. Related function is also, so you can tell me, maybe someone that have, that is familiar with Excel and Power BI before. You can tell me what is the corresponding functions to related function in Excel. Anybody? You know it, you can just pick. What's the corresponding function to related function in Excel? It's a very popular function. No? It's a very, very popular function. What's the corresponding function to related function in Excel? A very popular function in Excel. And I think if you don't know that function, I don't know, you don't know Excel for me. Or if you don't know that function, you don't know Excel. So what's the function in Excel? What's the corresponding function to related function in Excel? Anybody? Anyone? Please speak up. I'm not checking the chat. In case you are dropping the answers, I might not see it. So please, you have to raise your hand and let's Busola give you the mic. So what's the corresponding function to related function in Excel? Anyone?
VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP.
God bless you. God bless you. That's the right answer. So VLOOKUP, SLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, those are the corresponding function to it. So you can see that you are not learning anything, anything new, actually. You just want to know, come and see how it is being used in Power BI. That is just it. All these things, you know them already. You know VLOOKUP, you know HLOOKUP, you know SLOOKUP. So when they now say related function here, you just know that they are doing almost the same thing. When you say related, bring in data that is in related table, bring it into the other table. That's it. The same thing VLOOKUP will do for you. You understand? So that's pretty straightforward. Then we have the time intelligence, which I feel like you might not see them in Excel, and which they are here. We have the total year to date. Maybe you want to calculate year to date, you want to calculate previous year, you want to calculate age, difference between age, you want to calculate same period last year, you can use, this total YTD, date add, we have date diff to show the difference between time frame and all. So those are time intelligence. And we have some other functions. Like I said, we have over 500 functions. We are only just going to focus on the basic one, or which are the most, there's one important function that is not even here, which is the calculate function. Calculate function is one of the most important function that, okay, it's part of the function that I listed below here under the filter function, calculate function. It is one of the most important function. By the time you know calculate function, I can say that you are getting good with Power BI DAX. By the time you start understanding how calculate function works, then you can say that you are getting good with Power BI DAX. So look forward to learn about the calculate function. So those are DAX function. So let's quickly look at what is calculated table. So let's look at what is calculated table. I told you that we have three major type of DAX: the calculated table, the calculated column, and what? The calculated the measure. We have three type of DAX: calculated table, measure, and calculated column. Those are the three type of DAX that we have. Now, in calculated table, we can create a calculated table is what? When you are creating a new table from an existing table. What did I say? When you are creating what? A new table from what? From an existing table. The table already exists, but you want to create a new table, maybe as a result of the requirement from your stakeholders. Maybe your stakeholders say, oh, please, I want to see an aggregated, I don't want a granular information. Can you help us to aggregate this information? And they want to see it at the aggregate level. You might have to recreate a new table using Power BI data. But I'm going to tell you this, for best practice, don't create calculated table with DAX. Don't create a table with DAX. If for best practice, I'm just saying this, for best practice, don't create table with DAX. It's better for you to create your table either in your data source, from your data source, maybe from your SQL database, Azure, anywhere your data is coming from, or you create it in what? In the Power Query. But let's say maybe in a scenario where you don't have choice, rather than creating it in using that, then I'm going to teach you how to do that so that you will not feel, oh, I don't know how to do it. There will be some scenario where you might have to do it. Those scenario you might not be able to avoid it. You have to do it, but for a best practice, it is not encouraged anyway. It's not encouraged. Okay, so let's quickly look at the examples on how we can create a calculated table using DAX. So let's see how we can. So we have some function, the major function that we can use, we can use summarize and group by. So I'll only use one of these functions for you. Then you guys will go and do your research on how to use the other function because of time. So let's quickly go to Power BI. We'll continue from our slide. So let's go back to Power BI to see how we can create a calculated column, a calculated table. So I will go to my table view. I'll go to my table view. Let me check. So I'll go to my table view. Now, if you see on my table view, I told you that we have three types of DAX. If you look at the top here, you will see what? New measure, new column, and new table. These are the major three types of DAX that we have. You see this quick measure, I can tell you that since I've started doing data analysis, I barely use it. You can exploit it. It's just a way you can quickly create a measure that Power BI has done for you with his intelligence or intelligence that they have within the Power BI. You understand? So you can make use of it, but 99% time I don't really use it. I've not really used it. Most of the time I do my own calculation myself. So we use the new table, new column and measure to create our DAX, right? And if you want to create a new table, you understand? If you want to create a new table, now there is difference between, if I click on this is table, you can see these are customer product, these are table, right? These are table, these are table, these are table. If I click on a column, if I click on maybe under the customer and I click on the column now, the option to create a new table will not come out. Hello, what did I say? The option to create a new table will not come out. It's only when I click on the table name, the option to create a new table will come out. So please be careful, because a lot of people will be finding it so difficult to navigate. Oh, how does this tutor do it? It's so fast. You just have to be patient with yourself. Don't rush yourself. Be patient. Now, like I said, if you want to create a new table, make sure you are clicking on the table. Don't click on the column. If you click on the column, you will not see the option to create the new table. Now, I'm going to create a truth table for us. I will use, I'm going to create a calendar table. Then I'm going to use the group by option or summarize function to also create another table for us. So let's say, now I want to click on it, create a new table. So let's say I want to create a table called calendar. So now in our transaction data, we have 1997 and 1998, right? So I'm going to click on new table. So let's click on new table. Then I will call the new table what? A calendar. Don't forget, what we want to create is what? Is a table. Is a calculated table using DAX, right? So say calendar, then let's say calendar, what's the function? So this is a function. Like I told you guys that most of the things you will use is always a function. Sometimes you will use formulas as well, but most of the time you use functions. So we are creating what? Calendar. You can see the calendar function is asking for what? Start date and end date. So what is our start date? I'm going to say dates. You can see that inside the function, I'm putting another function inside it again. And that is how DAX work. Don't say that, oh, because they say calendar, how? What is my start date? You will now start putting 2022. You say that, that's my start date. You understand? Or you say 2022-12-01. This is your date. And your end date, you now say 2020, let's say 2024, let's say 12-31. If you do this one, it will not be correct. You will get a wrong output. Can you see? You get a wrong output because the function of a calendar is not the value directly. The function of a calendar is asking you for the date. That's why you have to first put the date function inside it. You write the date function. Now, the date function itself has its own requirement, which is what? Year first, 1997, comma, the month is what? 01, which is January. Then the day is what? 01, which is what? Which is on the 1st of January. Then you close it. Then comma, the end date is what? You type in date again because the function requires you to write a date function again. The end date is 1998, comma, month is what? 12. Then the end date is what? Is 31st, right? So then we close this calendar function. We close the calendar function. Then we enter. So when we enter, we already have what? A new table. Can you see? We already have what? A new table called what? Calendar table. Can you see? We have a new table called what? Calendar table. Now you can decide to format this column. We now have a date time. But what we want to have is what? Is a date. So we just want to have a date. So we change it. We change our data structure or data format to what? To a date. So you can see. Now, the next thing is that whenever you have a calendar table, it is always advisable that you convert your calendar table to what? You mark it as a date table. It's always advisable that you mark it as a what? As a date table. So I'm going to mark this as a date table. Choose a column, date, then you save it. So you can see that I have saved it now. Are we following? Are we following?
Yes.
Are we following?
Yes.
All right. Okay, let me see if there is. Okay, I think this is part of the last. Okay, so now let's move on. So you can see how we are able to create your date table, right? Now, it is not just like about creating date table. You can use this date table now serve as what? As a date dimension. It serves as what? As a date dimension. You can now start going to, you can go to your model. You can see in your model, we have the dates. Can you see the table now? You can create a relationship between your date here and transaction date if you want. Anyone that you want to create relationship between it. So you can create your relationship between the two tables. I think someone was asking me a question around, maybe which one should come first or which one should come down in when you are creating model. If your dimension table, that's why you need to understand the concept of dimension. If your dimension table is at the top and your fact table is below, definitely you will have one-to-many. And if your fact table is at the top, if I change this to this one is not changing. Let's say I change this one to okay, let me say customer. Why is it not changing? I'm coming. Okay, so let's say I choose this one as transaction and I choose this one as calendar. So the fact table is now at the top. The fact table is at the top while the dimension table is at the down. Now your cardinality is going to change to what? To many to one. Your cardinality is going to change what? To many to one, because this is the many side of the table and this is the one side of the table, which is the calendar table, is a dimension. A dimension table is a table that has what? A unique value. It doesn't have a duplicate value. I hope you understand. So when you create your relationship between them, it doesn't change the fact that it is still one to many or whichever direction it's going to be, but it's just always advisable that it is always in a downstream. When you say a downstream, meaning that your dimension table should be at the top and your fact table should be what? Should be below. So that is what they mean by downstream. So when I put, so for example, now let's say all this one now, when you say downstream, this is what they mean by downstream. This is what they mean by downstream. Downstream means that all your dimension table are what? Are at the top. All your dimension table are what? They are at the top. So all your dimension table are what? They are at the top and your fact table is below. Now, I want to ask you a question based on what you guys taught last week. What type of model is this? You can tell me. What type of, or what type of schema is this? 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 Anyone? What type of schema is this?
Star.
Do you guys agree that it's a star schema? What type of schema is this? Star. Okay. Any other person? Any contrary opinion? All of you are saying star schema. Wow. Is it only star schema that they taught you guys last week? Is it only star schema? Ramat, he says snowflake. Why is it a snowflake? I think your own answer is the only answer that is different. So why is it a snowflake? Can you explain? Just explain yourself. You can take the mic, raise your hand, and you'll be allowed to speak. So explain to us why it is a snowflake schema. Please be fast. Be fast. Let's be fast. We don't have time. So those of you that are saying snowflake, can someone explain why it's a snowflake schema? Okay, but you choose snowflake. So why is it a snowflake? Can you explain it? Okay, yeah. Can you explain why it is a snowflake? Or Ramat, any one of you should explain. So I need the understanding. I want to know whether you guys understand the concepts. And those of you that say it's a star schema, I want one of you to explain why it's a star schema as well. Oh, you choose star. Okay, so if it's a star schema, explain yourself. Now, I need someone to speak. If it is a star schema, just unmute yourself and say why it is a star schema. If it's a snowflake schema, unmute yourself and say why it's a snowflake schema. Or else we will not move. We will just end the class here. So if you guys do not stop. If it's a star schema, raise your hand and speak and tell us the reason why it's a star schema. Use a snowflake schema. Tell us the reason why it's a snowflake schema. And I will tell you the answer, who is correct and who is not correct. So, okay, I get. Okay, so for snowflake schema, for those of you that choose snowflake, so why is it a snowflake schema? We have over 30 people on this call and nobody can speak. This is serious. This is serious. Is it that you guys don't understand the concept or what? Okay, Winnie. Okay, it's a star schema because it has a central table connecting directly to the normalized dimension table. I do not agree with you. Okay, I know, but I do not agree with you. Any other person? Well, is everybody scared of talking to the mic? I don't understand. You guys should talk. If one person cannot talk, we are not living here. So one person should should come and explain what a star schema is and a snowflake schema is. I need one person to do that. Just take the mic, raise your hand. Else, we'll just close the class for today. So someone should build the class. Okay, someone say you want to see my screen. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so let's move on. Because if we should stay here, a lot of you guys, some people are even praying that the class will end at the moment so that they can go and enjoy the Salah break. Is it Salah? Yeah. So some people are already praying that the class should even end. So they even be happy if I ended the class now. But they don't even want to join the class before. Okay, so the answer is actually a snowflake schema. It's not a star schema. I believe Joseph will have explained to you guys last week. Maybe you guys are not paying attention, or you guys did not go over the videos again. When you say a star schema is a type of model that all the dimensions are connecting directly to the fact table. But if you look at this schema, you will see that the region table is not connecting to the fact table, it's connecting to the store table, which makes it what? A snowflake schema. A snowflake schema is where you see a dimension connecting to another dimension, then that dimension is not connecting to the fact table. So that is what makes this schema not a star schema. So that is what makes it a snowflake schema. Anyway, today's class is not on modeling. I believe you guys should just go back to previous class, and because if you don't understand some of these things, you will go for interviews and they will be asking you some of these simple questions and you'll not be able to answer your interviewer. So please make sure that you pay attention to all these things. Okay, so we have created a calculated table using calendar. So from this table that we have created, you can also create some other, maybe some more information, like more columns. So let's quickly create like 1 or 2 columns in this table. So let's say we want to create year. So let's say we want to create a year. So let's say year. So we want to create year. So let's say calendar. Now you can see that I'm now referencing the calendar table. So calendar dates, you can see calendar dates. I'm now referencing the calendar dates. You can see. So this one will give us the year. You can see 1997 and 1998. So you can see. Now let's create a new column, one more column. So let's say we want to create the month name. So we want to create the month name. So to create the month name, I'm going to say format what? Calendar dates. Then I'm going to say, since I want to create month name, so if you want the month name to be in full, you will put double 4M in it, just like MMM. Then you enter if you want the full name. And if you want the short name, you can just put 3M, remove 1, then enter. So this will give you the short name of the month. So you can say that we have the short name of the month. You can see April, you can see. So that is how to create you can start creating your calendar table on like that, depending on what you want and all. So depending on what you want. So that is that on calendar. So let's quickly do one more calculation using what? Using calculated table. So let's do one more calculation using calculated table. Now I have this table called transaction, right? You can see this table called transaction. Now you can see how many records do we have here? How many records do we have here? How many records do we have? You guys should tell.
269,000. Is that what I'm saying? Yes, 269,720 rows.
Okay, so this is the total record. Now, let's say that there's a requirement from your stakeholders. Maybe you are creating reports using this data. And what they want is that they want you to aggregate this data. Probably maybe they want you to aggregate it by product ID and store ID. The reason why they might want aggregation is that your stakeholders, maybe the management level, they are not really interested in the granularity of your data. They want the high level results. You understand? So they want you to aggregate it. Now, if you want to create an extract table, so I'm going to say, like I told you, like anytime you want to create a new table, make sure you are clicking on the table name, then click on new table. So now we are going to use another function called, you can use a function called, let's say, aggregate with, let's say group by. So you can also use summarize to do it, but I will give you as an assignment to do that, to go and do the assignment with that one. So let's use the group by function. I'm going to say group by. So the group by function is asking me for what? The first thing is asking what is what? The table name. Which table did I want to group by? So I'm going to say transaction. That is the table name. You can see the table name, comma. Now, is that same for the group by column? Which column did I want to group by? I want to group by the product ID, transaction product ID, comma. Then I also want to group by what? By store ID. I also want to group by the store ID, which is the transaction store ID. So you can see now, comma. The next thing is asking me after the group by. If I have more than 2 variables or 2 columns I want to group by, I can keep on putting in the group by. But I only want to group by the product ID and the store ID. Now, the next thing is asking me is what? The name of the column that I want to group by. What is the name? So the name is what? So the name is what? So I'm going to say total quantity. So I want to call it for total quantity, right? Total quantity. Now, comma. Now, what is the expression? The expression is now what? The group by that I actually want to create. So I'm going to say sum x, then I'm going to say current sum x current group. That is the function, current group. Then I'm going to say comma. Then the expression is what? Quantity. You might not really understand all these things, but just take your time, to understand what they are actually doing. So current group is telling us that, okay, we want to group by the current aggregation in this expression. So that's what we want to do. Then I'm going to say comma. The next one is what? I want to also get the average. Let's say I want to get the average quantity as well. Average quantity. So I'm going to use another function called what? Average x, and I'll say current group, comma, then expression is what? Quantity, which is the transaction quantity. Then I'm going to close this one. Yes, then I'll close this one, then I'll say enter. Now, can you see now we have how many records? Can you see the new table that we just created? So you can see the table that we just created: transaction product ID, transaction store, total quantity, and average quantity. We have aggregated this table. Now, how many records do we have now? From 269 records. You can see now that we have how many records? 35,000 records. So you can see that we have aggregated this data. Now, it doesn't change anything. Let me show you. It doesn't change anything. We only aggregated it. If you come to this table and I do quantity from this table and I change this to this card, what did I have? 833. That is what I have. Now, if I go to this table as well and I pick total quantity from this table, from the aggregated table that I created, and I do this, can you see? I still have the same thing. The only thing is just that I already aggregated it. And now, the truth about it is that when you aggregate a table, it takes more time. The performance of aggregated table is better than the one that has the granularity. The performance of this one is better than the one that has because this one will take much time to load or to when it comes to optimization compared to the aggregated table. So I hope you understand that. So that is how you can create tables using different methods, right? So now let's go back to our slide. I hope you are still following. Is there any question? Is there any question? Do you have question? Any question? Any question? Okay, there's no question. Let's move on. There's no question. Let's move on. Okay, so the next thing we'll be talking about, we'll be looking at is let's see. Okay, mistake. Okay, so we'll talk about the calculated table. So the next thing we'll be looking at is the calculated column. Actually, we have done calculated column in some of the things that we did in our table, but we'll just do one or two examples for us to see how calculated table actually works. So calculated table is also, so whenever you are creating a calculated table, a calculated column, it helps you to add a new column to your table with a row by row logic. Whenever you want to create a calculated column, it is always adding a new column based on what? Row by row logic. You are creating it on a row by row logic. Do you understand? So it's on a row level. You are creating it on a row level when you are creating your calculated column. Compared to a table that, when you create a table, the calculation is not actually done on a row level, but when the result comes, it's going to come in a row. You understand? But when you are creating a calculated column, it's always in a row level. And it is always advisable as well for best practice. I don't know. I have a section later today by 4 p.m. I have a section that I want to take, and maybe I will share the link with you guys. You guys, if you have time, you can join the session as well. It's majorly on Power BI classes, and also we talk about Power BI best practice and have some questions. So if you have time by 4 p.m., you can also join the section. I will share the link with you after this class. So there's also a best practice here when it comes to calculated column. It is not always advisable to create a calculated column using DAX. If it happens that you want to create a calculated column, go and create it in Power Query. A lot of people, they will just want to flex that they know DAX, they know how to create, calculated column. But when it comes to performance for optimization purpose, it is not advisable to use what? To use calculated column. You can actually create any calculation column you want to create. You can do it in Power Query. And the purpose of me saying this, or the purpose of this, is that it's just for optimization purpose. When it comes to loading of your data or performance of your data, of your data model, it is always better you do your calculated column in Power Query. But let's say maybe in a scenario where you don't have access to Power Query, because sometimes you might not have access to Power Query. So you might be forced to use what? To use Power BI or to use calculated column to create your calculations. So when do you use calculated column? You use calculated column mostly when you want to create a categorical data. Hello, what did I say? You use calculated column when you want to create a calculated, you want to create a categorical, information. That is most scenario when you use what? When we do calculated column. So okay, so let's quickly look at some of the example of calculated column. So let's look at some of the example of calculated column. So I'll just do one or two examples for us. So we go back to so let's say we have done calculated column. You see all this one that I created here, the year, all these months name, they are also calculated column. But let's just do one or two examples. So let's go to our customer table. So let's say that there's a requirement. There's a requirement that says, let's say there's a requirement that says, so let's say there's a requirement that says we should find so I think I have the questions. Let me look at that question. So let's look at this question. Power BI, maybe class, data sets, project guide, 3. Okay, so let's look at this question. Let's look at this requirement. So let's look at this requirement. In the customer table, add a column named priority equal high for customer who owns home and have golden membership card, otherwise standard. Do you understand? So we have a requirement here that says that we should find what? Customer that has what? That has they has home and they also have golden membership. You understand? So you can use different functions to achieve this. But let me use this function for us, which is what? The switch function. I know it's a new function in Power BI, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to change this homeowner. This homeowner, I'm changing it to is a true or false So let me change it to text. I'm going to change it to text. I'm going to change it to text. Okay. So now what the requirement says that you need to find if a customer has home and it has a gold membership. If you look at the member card, we have golden, right? So they are now saying that, can you create a column to categorize this customer based on what? If they have home. So if Emmanuel has home, you are an home owner, and you are also a gold member. Now, they say we should categorize it as what? High customer. You understand? If otherwise, we should categorize it as what? As standard. I hope you guys understand. If Emmanuel is homeowner and he has a member card of what? Of golden, meaning that he's a gold member. You know, maybe you register for a particular, maybe let's say you go to a particular, let's say, what should I use now? I want to use, maybe let's say that a fitness center. You used to go to a fitness center, right? And in that fitness center, maybe when you are doing your registration, they collected your data. Oh, do you have a house or no? You say you have an house, you put shoe. Now they're now in your membership card, they now ask you that which membership do you want? You say you want a gold membership. You don't want bronze, you don't want normal, you don't want silver. Now you will now want to categorize. Now the stakeholders is now the question. Okay, can you help us to categorize this customer based on their, okay, if they have home, you know, and membership card is also golden. Now let's give them what? A high priority. There might be a reason why they want to do that. You understand? Maybe they will, this type of customer, we must not lose them. You understand? There's a purpose for doing those kind of analysis. This customer, we need to know, you know, whenever it comes to, you know, maybe discounts, or maybe in terms of, you know, sentiment to customer, let's first prioritize the, you know, the customer that are on high priority. And, you know, doing a new column, creating a new calculation will help you to understand, okay, these are the high priority customer. You understand? So now to do that, you say that, and now I have to click on what? New column. I'm clicking on the new column to create the calculation. You can see new column to create the calculation. Now we call it what? Priority. We call it what? Priority, right? So priority, so I'm going to use a function called, I'm going to use a function called the switch function. I'm going to use a function called the switch function. So what does the switch function does is that it's going to switch what? Switch through is asking for the value that we want to work with, which is what? The customer homeowner. So is the customer, does the customer has home? True or false? Customer homeowner customer home homeowner. If the customer is an homeowner, equals to what? Equals to true. Customer is an homeowner equals to true. Then we are going to use the ampersand. It's also the same thing as using and. You understand? Or maybe in your function you can use the and function. But let's say I'm going to use the ampersand here. And what? And customer membership card. Customer member, is it member? Customer, okay, customers members card. The member card is equal to what? Is equal to golden, right? Is equal to golden, right? So if these two criteria is being met, right, then it should be, what should be the result? The result should be what? Should be high. It should be high. Else it should be what? It should be standard. Else it should be, it's just like saying that you are using if statements. Else it should be what? It should be standard. Then let's close this one. Then let's say enter. Okay, so now you can see priority. We have standard and we also have high. Now, if you filter by high, so let's check it. So you can see that the customer homeowner are what? They are true, and the golden member, their membership card is also what? Is also golden. So that is what it means here. You understand? Probably you want to know, maybe, okay, do we have clear all filter? So maybe you want to know in your analysis, okay, how many percentage of maybe you want to do in terms of total quantity, and you come to this place and you do priority. So let's look at the priority by what? By total quantity. Probably you want to see, okay, who are the one that pays, you can see that the standard actually has, higher, more, purchase than the high priority. So the high priority, they are just about what? 9.64% of the entire population, of the entire customer. You understand? So maybe you just want to give those people, those 9% something. It is easy for you to know, okay, 9% is not much. You can give them some little discount based on the they have high priority or anything. Or you might not even want to give them, maybe it is the standard people you want to give discount because you feel like these people they have money, they have house, and they have golden membership, depending on your whatever you feel or whatever the company decides to do with the data, right? So that is that about calculated column. So you can do a lot of things with your calculated column. You can do, upper, maybe for example now, you want to do, you might want to extract, because of time, I need to be fast. So you might want to, you can use some of these, maybe you want to create priority. Now let's say you want to do upper, you want to change your case, let's say priority. You want to change to uppercase. You want everything to be changed to uppercase. Priority. So let's say we want to change everything to uppercase. You see that everything has changed to uppercase. You can see standard, everything change. You want to change everything to lowercase as well. Just change all these things you are familiar with them in Excel before, right? You're familiar with them in Excel before. So you can see you can change everything to lowercase. So you can also delete your columns if you don't want your columns. Delete it from your models. Yes. So you can delete your column from your model. So that is how calculated columns work. So I believe you guys can try to explore more. You will have a lot of functions that can help you to create a calculated column, and we have done one of them. So now let's move to the last part of the DAX, which is what? Which is the measures. Now, this is the most, this is the most important part of all the calculations, and a lot of people sometimes find this one a little bit complex. When you are writing measures, a lot of people find it more complex than every other DAX functions, right? So, but it is also simple. It's not that hard. You get, it's very, very simple. So we have two types of measures. Hello, what did I say? We have how many types of measures? We have two types. We have the implicit measure and we have the explicit measure. Now, one thing about measure is that they are based on filter context. You can tell me, what is calculated column based on? What is calculated column based on? Anyone? What is calculated column based on? What is calculated column based on? What is calculated column based on? Are we still here? Categorical data? No, that's not what I said. Row context. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, calculated column is based on row context. Why measure is based on filter context? Calculated column is based on what? Row context. Why why measure is based on what? Is based on row context. So that's the answer. So now the measures are based on what? Measures are based on filter context. Why calculated column is based on what? Row context. So please make sure that you pay attention to that. And then I said earlier that we have two types of measures. We have the implicit measure and we have the explicit measure. So what is explicit measure? What is implicit measure? So the terms implicit measure means that we are not the one creating the calculations. Power BI Intelligence is the one doing the calculation for us. We just need to do what? Drag and drop. We are not doing what? Any calculations. That is implicit measure. But when we talk about explicit measure, that is the time when you are the one creating the measure yourself. Hello? What did I say? Explicit measure is what? When you are the one creating the measure yourself. At this point, you're not using the Power BI Intelligence to do your calculation. And one important good or one of the most important reason why you should use explicit measure is because you can always reference that measure in your calculation later on. Hello, you can always what? You can always reference explicit measure when you are doing some other calculation. But when it comes to implicit measure, you cannot reference it. Are we together? What did I say? Implicit measure cannot be what? Cannot be referenced. Why explicit measure what? Can be what? Can be referenced. So let's look at the difference and an example of each of the measures. Now, it is always for a best practice. I've always been mentioning best practice. Best practice. It's just the best practice. It does not mean that you have to do it, but for best practice. For best practice, it's always advisable that you create a separate table that you will use for your calculation. Hello, this is what? It is always a best practice that you create a separate table that you will use for your calculation. So that, because sometimes you might create a calculation, a measure, that you might not even know which table the measure is going into. But if you have a separate table that you're putting all your measure, you will know that, oh, this is where all my measure is. So you will not be confused on where your measures are, right? So I'm going to click on enter data. Then I will call this table what? I'll call it calculations. Okay, so I'll call it calculation. You can see, so we have column 1 inside it, which I'm still going to delete later on, but let's leave it for now. So now, we want to, like I told you earlier, we have two types of measure. We have the implicit measure and we have the explicit measure, right? Now, if you look at what is explicit measure, if you look at this visual card that I put here, I did not do any calculation with it. I only use the values here. I said, okay, this particular one, let me remove this one. Okay, let me remove this one. So this particular one is coming from where? The transaction table. I only drag this one into this page. When I drag it into the field, it has what? Different options, like sum, average, minimum. If I decide to use average, you'll see that the average changed to what? 3.09. If I decide to use let's say I want to change it to the maximum is what? Can you see 6? You can see. You can see that I did not do any. If I want to do counts, maybe count of distinct counts, you can see 6 counts of everything. You can see I'm not doing any calculation. It is just a Power BI intelligence that is doing all this calculation for me. And this is what they call what? Implicit measure. The measure that you're not the one creating it. But you can still express yourself further. The process of expressing yourself further is when we call it what? Explicit measure. When you can create the measures yourself. Please, I hope you guys understand. I hope you guys are understanding this concept. Implicit measure, explicit measure. I hope you understand. So now, and I said something about the major difference between the implicit and the explicit. What's the major difference? Anybody? What's the major difference between them? What's the major difference between the implicit and the explicit? I mentioned it earlier. What I say is the key difference between them.
The implicit cannot be referenced, while the explicit can be referenced.
Can be referenced. Good. So, like I said, yeah, thank you. Shows that you're following. So, like I said, the implicit cannot be referenced, while the explicit can be referenced. No, so that let's see what I mean by it can be referenced and it can never be referenced. So let's see it in action. Now, let's say that this particular quantity, so let's change it to total quantity. Let's change it to sum. So now let's say this particular sum of quantity now, I'm going to create a measure. So I'll come to this calculation table and I'll, instead of creating on, we have been using new table and new column before. Now I'm going to be using what the new measure. So I'll be using the new measure now instead of using tables. And it's always advised when you are creating measure, create it on the report side. Don't go to the table side of it to create it. So let's say we want to create a measure called what? We want to create a measure called total units sold. Total units sold. So total units sold is what? Sum what? So sum quantity, sum of quantity, right? That is the total units sold. And let's enter. Okay. So now if I bring in a new visual and I come here and I put total quantity sold, total units sold, you can say that I still have the same value with this one that it is an implicit measure. I still have the same value. But now let me delete this column 1. Like I said, I'm still going to delete it. So let me delete this column 1. Yes. Okay. Okay. Now, let's say that I want to create another measure that says, let's say we want to find total quantity or total units sold for year 1997. Hello, I want to create a total quantity sold for year 1997. Now, you will see why creating an explicit measure is important over using the implicit measure. Now, if I click on calculation and I say new measure, and I say, let's say 1998 units sold. Units sold. And I say, okay, let's say I want to use the calculate function now. Calculate what? Now, in this calculate, I can reference total units sold, which is the measure that I created. But I cannot reference this sum of quantity here. It will not, if I try to type it, it won't come out because it is not a measure that I created. Can you see sum of quantity? Sum of, nothing will come out. Sum of quantity, nothing will come out because it is not an explicit measure. So that is why this one is important, when you are creating your measures over using the implicit measure. So when I say total quantity, total units sold, right? And I say expression, and I say filter. Okay, I want to filter by what? Filter by calendar. Calendar, what is my expression? My expression is I want to filter by calendar year. Year, when the year is equal to what? 1998, right? When the year is equal to 1998, then let's close this. Then let's enter. Now, if you want to see the result of the value, you can take your card visual. Then 1998, you can see in 1998 we have 567 units sold in 1998. You can also calculate for 1997 as well. You understand? So that is that about measure. Now, the only thing else is just to for you guys to further more on the functions that you want to use. But we don't have much time to look at all the functions. We don't have much time to be looking at all the functions. But I can tell you for good that by the time you start practicing, you start understanding more on the functions. So I will just talk about few functions that might be useful, while you are going. I just use calculated function now, which is also part of the filter function. Now, let me also show you some fun. So I'm done with the 3 type of DAS, which is the calculated column, measures and calculated column. So now we'll just look at some few functions, do a few functions that it might be useful in your analysis, whenever you're creating, because a lot of people will find it difficult to understand some certain functions, you understand? So we'll just work with some few functions and we'll move on, right? We'll go to our last part of the slide to understand the difference between the calculated tables and columns. So we'll look at all those ones, but let's quickly look at some few functions that might be useful to you. So we have some functions like iterator functions. If you go back to our slide, you'll see that I mentioned some function earlier on, like iterator functions. Okay, so like iterator function, sum x, average x, related function as well, right? So let's quickly look at related function first. Now, but related function is always, for me, I don't really use it within the column side. Most of the time, I use it within the measures. So for example, let's say that I want to get the price of each of these products. The price is in what? Is in the product table. If you come to this price, you see product retail price. We have the price here. But if you go to the transaction table, there's nothing like price here. So if I click on a new column, I want to bring the price here. So let's say I want to bring the price here. I want to say, okay, bring the price here. So let's say price. And I said related function, related table. What's related table? Price, product retail price. And I say enter. You will see that it brings in the price for me. And if I want to say, maybe I want to calculate what is our total revenue or our sales, I want to say what is our sales. So what is our sales? What's our total sales? Total sales is equal to what? Let's say quantity multiplied by price. Now, because when you are doing calculated column, it is based on row context. So that is why you can do calculation like this. And you will see that in this place, I did not use functions. I only use what? A naked column name. It is possible with what? With a calculated column. It is not possible with what? With measure. Please take notes. This thing is possible with what? With a calculated column, but it is not possible with what? With a measure. It's not possible with that. So if I click on enter now, I'm going to see what's my total sales. If I go to the table view and I want to see my total sales, and I come to this table and I click on total sales. So our total sales is what? Is 1.76 million. That's our total sales, we can see. But you see how I use related function to bring in the price here. You can see the way I use related function to bring the price here. The thing is that it's not always advisable. It is not a best practice to use a function like this. Or in most scenarios, we always say that if it is possible for you to avoid creating extra column, please avoid it. Hello? It is what? It is avoidable for you to avoid creating extra column. Please avoid it. Don't, because the moment you start creating extra column, it's going to be expanding your data model, which is now going to make your data not to be well optimized. The performance of your data model is now going to be slower. You understand? And anything that you are trying to do in your data model should always what? Optimize your data model. Hello? Anything you are doing should always what? Optimize your data model. So we want to achieve total sales. You can see, what do we get? You can take a screenshot of this total sales, 1.76. I'm going to do it in another way for you now. And you'll see how we are going to achieve it. 1.76. So I'm going to delete the column. So let's delete this column. So let's delete it. So the price as well, like I said, we don't need it actually, but I just want to show in case you need to do it in, if possible, you want to achieve something using related function. So now let's go back to our table. Now I'm going to create a new measure. So instead of using the calculated column that I use, I'm going to create a new measure, and we'll call it what? Total sales. Total sales. What are total sales? Now I'm going to use the iterator function called what? SumX. Any function that you see that ends with X is called iterator function. What this function is doing is that they are iterating based on row level. Hello? They are what? They are iterating based on what? Row level. They are doing row by row calculation. They are doing what? Row by row calculation. That's what they are doing for you. So whenever you see an iterator function, note that what they are doing is what? Calculating based on row by row. And we have about 5 of iterator function like max X, meaning X, and averages, and sum X. So, but sum X is the most useful or the most used iterator function. So sum X is what? So transaction table is asking for the table. Now the next thing is that it's asking for the expression, right? It's asking for the expression, which is what? Quantity. Now quantity is what? Quantity multiplied by what? Quantity multiplied by what? You can tell us. Quantity multiplied by what? Quantity multiplied by what?
Is it price?
Price. Okay. So if I say price, where is the price coming from? Where is the price coming from?
It's not product, Abi. That should be product table, sir.
Product table. So if it's coming from the product table, how do I ensure that I can able to pick the product table in this formula? Knowing that there is no way I can just combine the two tables together. So what do you think I'm going to do here? Anybody? Anyone? Nobody. Okay. So this is where the related function comes in. Hello? This is where what? The related functions comes in to come and play in. We're going to say related what? Related function. It is the related function that you will now use to call the price in the product table, right? You use the related function to call the product retail price in the product table. You understand? So that is that. So when you do that, now let's see the total sales. 1.76 million. Can you see that the same thing you achieve using measure? In the other table that what we did the earlier time, we go to the transaction table, we started adding multiple columns. And I told you that the moment you are adding multiple columns, it's going to be expanding your data model, which we are trying to avoid. So which one do you prefer? Adding multiple columns here that is expanding your data model, or using a measure that is not even adding anything at all to your data model? Which one will you prefer to use? Which one are you going to prefer to use?
The last one, sir.
Exactly.
The last
The
one.
measure.
So, the measure. So it is always advisable to optimize your data model. Try to optimize your data model. You get? So that is the purpose of So you need to know when to use a measure, when to use a calculated column, and when to use a table. You understand? So I think this is where we'll stop. There's a lot. Like I said, I cannot cover all the functions that I know with you guys. You also have to do a lot of practice. So maybe what I will do for you guys is that I will send this question maybe after tomorrow's section. I won't send it to you guys now. Maybe after tomorrow's section. Yeah, I will send this question for you guys so that at least it will guide you on what you need to achieve or what exactly is your expectation. There might be some things that we might not cover, but you might have to do your research. If you have any issues, you can drop it on the group chat, on the Discord channel, discuss with your colleagues. You guys can, all of you that have been attending class by now, what I expected is that try and get into a group together, start interacting. The session it has ended. It's ending this week, right? You guys should, people that have been active collect your number, have a group chat, so that you guys can continue learning, and learning does not stop, after this whole bootcamp. You understand? At least to encourage yourself and all. So what I would do is that maybe after tomorrow's session, when Adebola Adebola is not taking tomorrow class. So once she's done, I'll probably send you guys these questions to practice around. There's a DAS part of it. There's calculated column measures, so you guys can practice with it and all. So but after tomorrow's session, I'll send that to you guys. Okay, so if you have any question, okay. Okay. Before we go, let's quickly complete this slide. I think there's some parts. Okay, so let's quickly look at the difference between calculated tables, columns, and measures. Right. So like I said, calculated table the purpose is to create a new table. Calculation time, data refresh time. Calculated column had a new column, value by row, like I told you earlier, is on a row level. Data refresh time measures calculated aggregated value dynamically based on filter, and it use a query time. So that's that about the differences between them. Now to go back again about the best practice, I've been mentioning some best practice. So for best practice, like I said, use measure instead of calculated column for aggregation. Whenever you want to do aggregation like total sales, total cost, if you can use measure, use measure. Don't say because you want to flex your muscle, you want to show them that you know DAX and all. It will make your data model to not to be well optimized. You understand? So use measures when necessary, and when it is used, when it is possible when it is necessary for you to use calculated column, do that as well. You understand? And I also mentioned that it is always advisable to use calculated column to create column in Power Query, or even create it in your data source if you have access to the data source. Use meaningful names and consistent formatting. Ensure that your naming convention is right, so that you will not be confused with what you are doing. Keep your data model very simple. Avoid unnecessary complexity in your data model to improve performance and maintainability. Avoid complex DAX in visual pre-calculated if possible. A lot of people will be writing complex DAX. It's not necessary. Make your DAX simple, so that even when next person comes in, they look at your query, they can understand your calculation, understand your query. Some people will, it is not when, let me tell you something, you can write DAX and it will give you result. It does not mean that the answer is correct. You must ensure that your answer is, whatever the output is giving is accurate. So don't write unnecessary complex that. Make your DAX so simple and make it easy for others to read. So practical implementation. When implementing DAX in your Power BI project, remember to start with simple measure before creating complex one. Start with your normal count, sum, average, before start creating using variables, time intelligence. Because of time, we could not cover all those time intelligence. But I believe that, if you want to keep learning, there are some other. So the community still have some, other ways of teaching you guys. So even after your cohorts, we still have, you are still part of the community member, and there are some activities that we do on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, that you guys can leverage on. Make sure that you are active on those things. Is a way of, keep ourselves learning. I think there are sometimes we post articles on LinkedIn, do questions, try to participate in them. And, if you guys have concerns about, things that we need to do, even for your after post, let's say post learning, there are some things that you feel like we should do better, you can make a suggestion. And, if you want us to be taking you guys, maybe like a webinar, a weekend classes to refresh your memory, or there's some certain topics that we could not cover during the bootcamp, you can also make suggestions. Make sure you are making suggestions, because if you don't make suggestions, we will not know that you need some certain things. Most of the time on your quiz, we tell you that put a comment. You guys are not utilizing those things to make suggestions. Use them to make suggestions. Let us know what exactly you really want. I've gone to some people comment, they will put nothing, it's fine. If you have nothing to say, it's fine. There is no problem. But, those are the things that we will look at at the end of the day and review with it. So make sure that you start with simple measure before creating complex one. Test your formulas with different filter contexts. Document your DAX expression for future reference. In case you are leaving your organization, let the person that is taking over understand what you have done. The most important thing is what? Optimize performance by reviewing calculation dependency. Make sure you optimize your data model. By matching data and DAX, you'll be able to transform raw data into meaningful insight that drive business decision. I think that's all that I have for today. If you have any questions, you can quickly drop your question. We still have about 10 minutes or 40 minutes more to go. So if you have questions, please, you can raise your hand, you can ask questions, and let's see, let's see what we can do within the next few minutes. Busola, are you still there? Busola, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so you can drop the quiz now so that I know we have a very low number of people on the call, which is fine. At least let everybody on this call attempt the quiz now, and we'll also send it to the Discord channel for any other person that want to attend. And let me say this, for some of us that were on this call, a lot of us, last week or previous week, we give you guys 2 quiz to do. Some people will do 1 quiz, they will not do the second quiz. I don't know how you want to, when we are trying to collect your result, I don't know what you want us to put in your, if you did not do quiz, nobody will, it is 0 that you score. There is no beg there. So please go back to your previous quiz. If you know you miss a quiz, go back. Most of those quiz, they are not even close. We make it open. Whenever you are, if you know you are consistent with it, go back. If you know there's a quiz you did not do, go and attempt those quiz. If you do quiz today, there's another class coming tomorrow. Make sure you also do those quizzes. Don't leave one and do one and not do the other one. When we are computing your results, if you did not do it, we'll put your 0 there. We are not manufacturing score for anybody. You understand? We want competence people that we can vouch for, for future purposes. So please make sure you attend the quizzes. And like I said as well, please, if you have questions, it's time for you to ask questions, ask your questions. You can, Busola will drop the link to the quiz. Make sure you attempt your quiz. If you go to the Discord channel, the slide that I use for this class is already on the Discord channel. You can pick up the slide here. If you want to go through my, whatever I've done today or whatever I've displayed, you can go to the Discord channel. The slide is there. And please, like I said, because I'm not sure I will be available tomorrow. And that's why I have to say this. We have an upcoming, Busola, I don't know, do you have that, the link to the webinar? I don't know whether you have that link. If you can also share it on this call as well, let everybody ready. Everybody on this call have to attend that webinar. The most important thing about the webinar is even because of you guys. And you guys have done training. It's not just about training now. It is about what comes after the training. You don't just do training and you learn technical skills. What about how do you get the job? The most important thing about me is that you guys getting the job. First cohort, second cohort, third cohort, we have, even if it's just one person, I'm satisfied that one person get a job. I know that if the one person have done the right things, follow the right paths, I believe that last cohort, we have someone that got a job already. The girl is starting next month, which I'm very, very happy for it. I'm very, very happy about it. She got a job, she's starting next month, and I'm happy. So this cohort as well, nothing say that one of you, even all of you can get a job. But, a lot of you guys are not doing the right thing. I will tell you guys, post on social media. Nobody's posting on social media. Attend class from 400 people. We have just 28 people on the call now. Just imagine. Just imagine. So should we say that if we have charged you guys like 100,000, 150,000, we will still have 28 people on this call? It shows that a lot of people are not really serious, right? But it's fine. Please, let's attend the webinar. The webinar is holding April 12th. Please, let's make sure that we attend. We have invited, people that are, they are high in this, they have high connection, they have, they have experience. You understand? They have worked in different fields in the data space. We have talents we are not just bringing anybody on this call, right? If you go and check the profile of the people that we are inviting for the webinar, the one holding on April 12th, go and check their profile on LinkedIn, check their profile on any social media. One is a senior manager in Junior Bank. One is a senior data analyst in Canada. So you guys should know that we're not just bringing anybody to this webinar. Please, the webinar is for you guys. Please, let's ensure that we attend. Put it on your calendar. Let's attend this webinar. And don't just attend, please. Let's ensure that we ask questions during this section. Ask questions and take action. A lot of people will attend seminar. A lot of you guys, after this bootcamp, you will start jumping to another bootcamp, thinking that is the solution. That is not the solution. Practice. Whatever you are practicing, put it on your social media, follow, what is it called? Follow recruiters. Do cold mail. You can send mail to some companies, attend events, tech events, attend events, make meaningful connections. You understand? Those are the ways you can make it. It's not just about, you are applying for jobs. You say, some people say they are applying for jobs, they did not get a job. You will not get it because what? There are some certain things that you also have to do. Strategic movement, they call it like that. Strategic movement, you don't just see, when it comes to the data space, it is saturated already. A lot of millions of people every month are learning this thing. How do you differentiate yourself from them? This is just a little test talk. A little advice that I think I have to just share with you guys. Please document your work, share your work outside, let people notice you. Quite maybe few people of you guys are doing it well. I think Lovett and some other ladies are, doing it good, and which I feel like, no, they are doing it. But you guys can be more than that. You understand? Tag Datakliq. When you tag all these people, they repost your work gets more, gets more engagement. People get to see your work more. We are not doing because I don't need followers on LinkedIn. I don't need any connection. I know how I can do it in my own, if I want that. At least I have enough for myself at the moment. You understand? But when you say advice to you, it's just for your own purpose. It's very difficult. The country is difficult. Some people are getting the job. That's just one thing that I want you guys to know. If you do the right things, you can get the job. Please, let's be strategic in whatever we are doing, and that's the purpose. If one person can just tell me that they are getting, I will be so happy. At least I know in Cohort 3 of Datakliq, there's a lady that got a job in fast credit. There's another person that I said just got a job again. My colleagues there can testify to that as well. So please, from your cohort as well, please, we want testimonies. And please don't hold testimony. If you have gotten jobs, come and share with us. It's a good foundation for people that are also coming on board. So we appreciate you guys. Please make sure that you register for the webinars, attend the webinars, not just attend the webinars, take action after the webinars and after your cohort. I think this is the last time we are going to be meeting for this cohort. I wish you guys the best of luck. We'll later see later in future or anywhere that we want to see. So if you don't have any questions, Busola, I think we are good. Is there any things you want to pass across to them? Busola, are you still there? Okay, so if there is no question from Busola, I think we can call it a day. You have one more class tomorrow, and also the webinar that is happening on April 12th. Please don't forget. If there's any other information that we need to pass across to you guys, we'll definitely pass it across on the Discord channel. So I'll see you guys later on. Bye for now.